Hey everyone, Enes Kanter made a big mistake. He showed up at a WNBA game to support Sophie Cunningham.
And right before the break, this was the scene inside Wintrust Arena after Natasha Cloud got that bucket. She wanted her voice heard. We have talked about the conversations surrounding the W. That is Enes Kanter in the building today. And he has voiced how he's felt about the situation. Natasha Cloud voicing her opinion as well. Kanter was just escorted out.
I'm Lowry of National Review. Of course, that's Enes Kanter, the former NBA player and activist at a Chicago Sky versus Indiana Fever game Sunday night, where there was this big, noteworthy confrontation. Now, the background to all this, of course, Sophie Cunningham, about a month or so ago, says in the ESPN profile that she doesn't have anything against trans people, but she doesn't think that biological males should compete against females in high-level sports. Should be an uncontroversial point of view, certainly an acceptable point of view, but it's blown up into this enormous controversy that is shaking the WNBA at its foundations. Enes Kanter has made himself part of this conversation. He's said in a gigantic troll that he's making himself available for the WNBA draft next year because he now considers himself a woman. And he shows up at this game to support Sophie Cunningham and her point of view, wearing this t-shirt defining a woman as an adult human female, which seems unassailable. But there's this confrontation, and then this happens. So there you see Kanter is hamming it up and playing it for all it's worth in order to make a point. I think you make criticisms of him in this incident. When the confrontation started, he approached the baseline. He shouldn't have done that, but ultimately it was not his fault. Going to come back to that in a minute. But in the meantime, there are sports journalists blaming Sophie Cunningham for this whole situation because apparently she always has to be the villain of the piece. Here's a guy named Chris Williamson. This is on Sophie Cunningham, and I will not be explaining any further. On Sophie Cunningham, what did she do? She didn't ask Enes Kanter to come to the game, nor especially did she ask the Chicago Sky player to confront him, but this Williamson tweet is just so indicative of the worldview of so many of the people who cover the WNBA and are invested in it. More from him. The moment the league didn't discipline Sophie Cunningham for her transphobic comments, they set the table for almost all this political discourse and nastiness towards the trans community. Her conduct has objectively been detrimental to the league. So that's so outrageous. There was nothing transphobic about Sophie Cunningham's comments. In fact, she went out of her way to stipulate she has nothing against trans people. And this is a women's basketball league. She is just defending one of the premises of the league. And for the WNBA to have punished Sophie Cunningham for voicing a point of view shared by the vast majority of Americans would have been utterly preposterous. But so much of the WNBA has reacted this way to Sophie Cunningham when, prior to the Sky game the day before, the Fever were in New York playing the New York Liberty. There were these pro-trans protesters outside the arena.
Well, if you're all going to stand here with me today, will you at least answer some questions for me?
No.
My first question is, do you believe
trans lives matter? Trans lives matter!
Again, no one is saying that trans lives don't matter. Certainly Sophie Cunningham hasn't said that. And I'd like to say that these protesters, they're a splinter group, a small minority of the WNBA fan base. But Sophie Cunningham was lustily booed when she was introduced, when she entered the game against the Liberty, and every time she touched the ball. I was at the Fever Liberty game, by the way, quite compelling basketball, nip and tuck game. Fever come back and tie it right at the end and then fall short. Caitlin Clark can't be a superwoman every night, but everything else around it besides the basketball was so annoying and woke and or anti-Cunningham. The Liberty didn't show up for the national anthem on court, and then during halftime, the Liberty showed these messages on the scoreboard. Hey, trans fans, glad you're here. Go Liberty. Welcome, trans Liberty fans. You're loved and you belong, etc. Now, if we come back to Chicago the next night, the Enes Kanter incident, so many people around the WNBA and observers have blamed Kanter. Here's a typical tweet from another sports journalist. There's nothing funny about disrupting a WNBA game. There's nothing funny about harassing a professional sports player. What these women have to go up against is embarrassing. A grown man resorting to these antics hates seeing the game I love disrupted like this. A shame. But this isn't what happened at all. It was Cloud, the Sky player, who caused this confrontation. The Athletic talked to someone who was sitting next to Kanter during the game. Trisha Smith, a fan who said she sat next to Freedom, he's also known as Enes Kanter Freedom, said Cloud, that's the player, instigated the confrontation on Sunday night. Natasha Cloud scored. She came over and threw her hands up and was talking shit to his face, said Smith, a Boise, Idaho native who said she didn't know Freedom before the game. So he stood up and said, like, what? What do you want? He didn't do a thing. I've sat next to him the whole game. He's a great guy. He's taken probably 50 pictures tonight. If there's any doubt about Cloud's motivation, by the way, she removed it with this social media post. To every trans kid/person, you are a part of my community and tribe. You belong, you're loved, you're seen, you're perfect as you are, and you will always be protected by me. She's completely an ideological hater, by the way. In the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, she posted things very critical of him and weirdly had kind of had a clash online with Enes Kanter before, back to the Athletic. After the Supreme Court rejected the use of race in college admissions as a violation of the 14th Amendment and ruled in favor of a Colorado graphic designer who did not want to create wedding websites for same-sex couples, Cloud took to X and wrote that our country is trash in so many ways. And instead of using our resources to make it better, we continue to oppress marginalized, capital M, groups that we have targeted since the beginning of times. Kanter responded 2 days later, calling America trash, huh? Let me know when your season is over. I'll buy your ticket, and we can go together to countries like China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, Venezuela, Cuba, and Turkey. Forget about calling them trash. I'd like to see if you can even criticize those regimes. People have no idea how lucky and blessed they are to be in a country like America. He's exactly right, of course, but it's Sophie Cunningham's misfortune to play in a league where so many people forced to choose probably agree more with Cloud on her political and social views than Kanter's. But it is notable that most WNBA players have not attacked Cunningham exactly because they realize their livelihoods depend on not having to compete against 6'10", 250-pound guys saying they're girls. Kanter posted this video not too long ago. I am woman, I am fearless, I am sexy, I'm divine. Which brings up one of the more amusing aspects of the Cloud-Kanter confrontation, which is that Cloud's teammates were restraining her like she had to be stopped or she was going to go and subject Kanter to this righteous beatdown, when of course she wouldn't be able to do that or to compete against him in basketball, which is the point now, isn't it? Hey, by the way, comment, like, or subscribe. I promise you won't regret it. And if you like this video, got a couple others for you. Another one on Sophie Cunningham and one on Caitlin Clark as well. Please check them out. I'm Rich Lowry, over and out.